Thank you for staying with us and welcome to this particular segment, which is Women at the Forefront, where we highlight women who do great things for the community. And today our woman at the forefront is Suad Abdullahi. Suad Abdullahi is a registered psychometric tester and a member of the British Psychological Society with a specialty in special needs education and disability. She is also the founder Center for Inclusive Practice. Welcome to the show, Suad.
Thank you so much, Viviana.
It's a pleasure to have you here.
Likewise, I'm really happy to be here today.
All right. So I don't know where we should start with this story, because you have a really good story to tell, and there's also what you're doing for the community. So how about we just first start with you trying to summarize the story of who exactly Suad is. I mean, you are a refugee right here in Kenya, so tell us that story.
Thank you so much, Vivian. My story has started in a refugee camp at the onset of civil war in Somalia, in Kenya, in Mombasa County. And in the early 90s, I had an opportunity in my early teens to immigrate to United Kingdom, where I started my early education, albeit very late. I went there as a refugee, had that opportunity to settle there, and then I started my education over there as a young adult in college, where I struggled in education, and I told them I was struggling in primary education before the civil war in Somalia. Mm-hmm. And then that's where the story began, because they realized that I had a hidden disability, which is called dyslexia, which basically means that you're not able to read or write. Mm-hmm. But because they had the understanding of how they can support me, they gave me the opportunity to study in an environment where I was able to understand how I can proceed in my learning. I graduated with diploma, even though I was still struggling with my learning disability. And then I got a job in local authorities to support immigrant families to integrate into the education system. I worked there as a civil servant for 10 years before I decided I want to go back to school and study, knowing that I was struggling in reading and writing. Mm-hmm. So I had an opportunity to enroll at Kingston University. Obviously, prior to that, there was a lot of worry that I might not cut it. But because the journey that the degree that I've chosen was special and inclusive education, majority of the teachers understood, and I was formally tested of having dyslexia, which actually was the severe end of the spectrum. But that didn't stop, because the university and the government invested heavily in supporting people like me not to be disadvantaged in education, where I graduated my BA and then continued with my master's, where now I master's degree hold on special and inclusive education perspective, and my research interest in conceptualizing inclusion for East Africa. Mm-hmm. And then I realized, okay, I had issue with my reading and writing, but cognitively I was able. So I got interested in understanding how the brain learns and how you can find out if somebody have a disability that is invisible like me. Because if I now say to you, Vivian, do you think I have a disability?
Of course I'll say no.
You would say no, because it is not visible. Yeah. So now I have studied how the brain works. So I can assess individuals from age 5 up to the 85 on their educational ability, to see that how they can function within education system and able to still excel on that. Yeah. So that's what I do right now, and I'm really privileged enough to be able to come back to my country of origin and support the people who are now being missed out on opportunities just because they cannot read and write. Yeah. So I focus on policy, strategy, and also finding the right assessment tool for those individuals who are right now in our schools, but not performing well.
Yeah, and you know, dyslexia, as you've said, it's an invisible disability. Like you don't really know if someone has it just by looking at them from afar. So how does the diagnosis happen? You have specialized in this now, and you said you assess these children from a young age. So how does it happen? How do you know, okay, this one may be having dyslexia?
So there's a characteristics of dyslexia. So one of the characteristics is that their short-term memory is not functional. So a lot of the information that is coming orally, they'll miss out. Another characteristic is that they're not able to write alphabetical letters in order. They mess it about, they swap it around, especially the letter B and the letter D. And then the other characteristic is that they find really incredibly difficult to read or spell certain words or even pronounce very difficult words. So there's words that I cannot pronounce. There's spelling that is so easy for layman people, but we find it really hard, especially the word the. We spell it T-E-H instead of T-H-E. But for me, when I'm looking at it, it's T-H-E. But to use, like, what are you doing? What is this? So there's the kind of characteristic that we look at into it, but we also look at the cognitive ability of the individual to see that are they really able to grasp knowledge in different ways. So we look at their learning style and how they learn. And generally, they learn either through visual or kinesthetic, meaning they doing things or looking, seeing things. So that's how we kind of characterize it. But there's the tools that we use to ensure that the individuals are assessed. We know their strength, and then we use their strength to carry on, because my strength is talking. And I utilize that and use technology to help me the areas that I'm weak at.
And it's really interesting, and it's a good thing that you're doing, you know, in just trying to assess some of these children, because most times, you know, in our usual kind of schools, the ones that are just the usual kind that we're used to, most times, you know, you may be deemed stupid. The teacher will be wondering, how come you cannot even spell your name? I mean, are you daft? So what are we trying to do in order to ensure that, you know, these students are not looked at as stupid, and also just them getting a space where they're able to exist?
I think first and foremost is to train the teachers. I think teachers does a wonderful job in educating our future. So if they understand how dyslexia brain works, they will be able to support those students in their classroom and understand that there's no one stupid, but they are struggling. Their brain will learn differently. Also policy, I think policy is a major barrier to ensure that individuals follow that policy that the government has also done. But on top of that, finances. I think, you know, schools and the you know, districts need funding to be able to support these students, because what they really need is qualified teachers, but also assistive technology that can support them in their journey of learning, using technology as a way of enhancing their weakness.
So far with your interaction, you know, with different students in different schools, do we have schools specifically in Kenya that support this?
Not necessarily. I think in terms of physical disability, sensory disability, I think Kenya is very, very strong. Yes, Kenya Institute of Special Educational Needs now leading on ensuring that teachers understand those children who are in mainstream school, who are struggling, who are not passing the grade 8 and the form 4 because they're struggling in literacy, but there is no formal system in assessing those children and ensuring that they get the access. So I support British system schools at the moment, since my educational background and my assessment background is British-based, but I'm working with the government of Kenya to ensure that we find tools that would support our children who are in the mainstream system, who are not reaching the milestones that they deserve because of their disability that is hidden.
All right, so that's a gap that is there. So maybe what other gaps are there in ensuring that, you know, these kids who have this invisible disability are also just integrated well in their learning?
I think awareness, because I think parents are not aware there's such disability. A majority of teachers don't understand. They might hear the word dyslexia in passing or maybe in literature, but they really don't understand how they can converse that into their classroom and support that. So I think awareness is the key, and something like we're doing today is like that. So a lot of parents who might now be watching us might thinking, my child, every single week I'm getting a phone call from the school saying that your child is not performing well. We need to ask the questions, why? And you know, we need to question our teaching method. Is it really conducive for our neurodivergent brain? And those children are many of them. In the UK, the last census that has been done is 1 in 20 children have dyslexia, and I'm sure if we've done similar assessment here, the number will similarities. So I think we need to get the data, find out where those children are, and support them so that they don't fail in the education system.
How can teachers maybe adopt their strategies when it comes to their teaching methods in order to also include
I think we need to move into the student-centered method, so we individualize education for individual children. So differentiation is the key, so that every child does not learn the same. Instead of writing everything on the board, give paperwork, give visual information to the children. You know, if you're doing a literacy, let's watch a drama, let's look at magazines, things like that. So teaching does not become just copying from the blackboard, but also can be interactive and engaging, and sometimes give a student to orally present some of their ideas so that you can see that they have the knowledge but not able to write that on the paper and convey that into paper. So teachers can find various teaching styles that they can support with the children, and once they realize how the student function better in terms of teaching style, then they continue with that so the child can excel in their reading and writing. And unless you have a strong reading and writing composition, all other subjects will fail, because if English language or Kiswahili is not your strength, then all other subjects is written in that language. So how would you function within that classroom? You'll fail each and every subject. So we really need to look at why our children are not not able to read, not able to write, in their ability, and look at our teaching style. And I think teachers have the duty to educate themselves and not just wait until was told, oh, you have a child who have a dyslexia, but we need to constantly formally assess our children within the classroom, but also refer if you're worried about this child's reading ability or writing ability based on their age.
Is it a lifetime disability, or does it get to a point where it can be reversed?
It's a lifetime disability, but you learn to cope with the demand of your brain. So the brain has a plasticity, ability to be able to learn new information all the time. So our long-term memory functions well. So everything that goes into your long-term memory can stay for lifetime. But what we miss out is that the short-term memory. And a lot of our education system actually focuses on short-term memorizing content so that you can quickly sit in an exam. And they need reasonable adjustment in exams, they need adjustment in coursework, things like that. So they have more time, because the brain processes information longer than an individual person.
How can fellow, their peers also get involved in this, in just ensuring that we support these young ones even as they are going about, their education? I
think shaming them, because I think if we shame individuals and say, oh, you're stupid, you're not learning, how can you spell that easy word? That could produce low self-esteem and even go into mental health issues. So I think what our peers can do is that we do not shame, and even in the workplace, because disability will carry with you into the workplace. So there's a lot of people who are in the workplace right now who manage to scrape basic knowledge but struggles, and they hide their disability because of shame. So we really need to be able to support individuals, whether they're in the school system, whether in the workforce.
There's something you told me off camera that was really powerful and beautiful. You mentioned that everyone has a superpower. It does not matter whether you are fully abled or you have a certain disability, whether it's a physical disability or an invisible disability. Everyone has a superpower. So if you can just speak more about that.
Okay, so every individual has something that they're good at. And at the moment, the education system focuses on deficit, but everyone has a strength and everyone has a superpower. For example, myself, my superpower is contextualizing orally. I have the gift of talking really well, but I'm not able to write well as I speak. So every child has similar to that. So we really need to look into the superpower of the child so that we can support them and use that. So when I come into public spaces, when I'm talking on camera, I can talk intellectually incredibly well. But if you tell me to write, I will be crippling. So, but now I use that to enhance how I go about my day. And one time my master's tutor says to me, if someone can get a distinction, an A star in talking, that would be Suad. But unfortunately, in the world of literary, writing is the key, but we need to support our children in able to write and use technology. Now AI came into the world of, into the world. I was using AI 20 years ago because that's how I been supported in being able to read, and able to write, using my voice. So let's not shame individuals who use technology to be able to use and complement their ability to function within the society.
Yeah. What's the importance of having advocates like yourself, who are out here speaking loudly about this, saying that I have an issue with reading and writing, but doesn't mean I'm not intellectual enough. So what's the importance of us just having more people advocating for
I think it's really important, and I think people need to come out, because I think if I hide my disability, because no one would know I have a disability, I don't have to share it. But the reason I'm sharing is that there's so many people like me in the world of work, in the world of schooling, parents who doesn't know what to do with their children. They might be themselves dyslexic, because dyslexia is inheritable. 3 of my children have dyslexia, yet all of them are exceeding in the education arena. My daughter is actually currently doing her master's in psychology and learning disability. And my son is doing psychology. My daughter is now exceeding in her high school education. So parents need to have an awareness, because I knew from an early stage that it is inheritable. I looked of ways that I can support my children, and now they have never been pinpointed of having issues in schooling, because I put these strategies and systems in place at that early stage. So the earlier that we support our children, the better. But it's a disability that you can live with and succeed. You can see I've done it, and I'm actually currently in the process of pursuing my PhD in human mind. So I really want to understand how the mind receives information and process that information, but yet you find areas of struggle. So, my advice to parents and individuals in power is that disability does not mean inability. We just need to understand it, and especially people with hidden disability, let's support them, and let's not fail people on the interviews when they do exams. Look at how they're conversing with you, how they're understanding the subject, and then ask the question, do you find reading difficult? Do you find writing difficult? And give them the support, because intellectually they're capable doing as any job as they want to. Yeah.
So your love for working with children with special needs, and you have that heart and passion for it, it stemmed from you knowing that you had this particular disability that many people did not understand, but you were lucky enough to be in a place where they got to embrace you and understand you. That's why you want to do the same for another child out here.
Absolutely. My adopted country, United Kingdom, has given me the opportunity to become who I need to become. Now I came back to my home country and I want to give the same. So I really want to support teachers, I want to support government, I want to support parents, so that no one is left behind. No one is deemed to be ineducable. Yeah. Everybody has an opportunity to learn if we know how we can teach them.
And it's really, really a good thing that you're doing. That's why truly you are our woman at the forefront today. Because, you know, when we talk about things like dyslexia, specifically in this country, I mean, I stand being corrected, but it's not something we really look into. It's not something most people know about. I'm sure so many people are hearing about it for the first time, and probably they can relate because maybe they have a child in the house who is not really good with writing, is not really good with reading, but it's not like they're daft. So at least now they get to understand, oh, it's actually a condition, there's something like that. Yeah. So I think it's time for us as a country to start looking into this. Don't you agree?
I totally agree. And when I looked at the policy in Kenya, actually policy is really good. But what we really need to do is implement that policy into practice. What we're really lacking is that our school system are not practicing that policy. And I think a lot of it relates to its finance. I understand that. But also, I think Teacher Training Institute can now look into dyslexia and assessment, because I think you need to be able to assess individuals to know that they indeed have dyslexia. And dyslexia is one of a kind. We have dyspraxia, who is people who find difficult in motor control, so that their brain functions indifferently. People who have dyscalculia, meaning they find difficult in mathematical issues. And also people who have ADHD and autism on the mild side might be also struggling in learning, because people are not understanding how they condition, how they learn because of their condition. So not only dyslexia, but also other neurodivergent conditions that we need to be aware. At the moment, autism and ADHD is becoming at the forefront because there's a lot of advocacy, but I think dyscalculia, dyslexia and dyspraxia are not well known. And we really need to push forward, and they are in our schools. And in every classroom, if we now do the assessment, we will find one child or two in that classroom. Could you give us a number on to how many schools maybe you've been able to go around in the country and do these assessments? At the moment, I'm only doing within kind of Westland, Parkland area. That's where my center is. But a lot of parents across Nairobi has come to my center to do the assessment. So we are doing the assessment, but not particularly schools that currently I'm reaching out. I'm only set up since April, so it's only recently that I'm trying to make sure the assessment goes out, and I'm in the process of kind of promoting out there. But you're open to do the assessments in every other school, in whichever area? So for maybe, you know, one of the stakeholders or one of the directors or head teachers who are watching us right now and would love that assessment to be made for their students, maybe where could they find you? So they will find us at Center for Inclusive Practice, is in Limuru Road, but also we can give our number 0726 715027. They will find us on that number, and we will be able to advise them. So what I do is initial consultancy to see if the child indeed needs the assessment. Sometimes they might have a gap in their education, they might going through trauma. So not necessarily every reading difficulty or writing difficulty stems from dyslexia. So we need to know what are the other issues. It might be teaching issues. So we can advise the schools on how to go about. And I'm working, hopefully that I'll be working with Kenya Examination Center, so that people who are deemed to have the dyslexia are being given reasonable adjustment so that they're not disadvantaged because of the exam procedures.
Yeah, because I can imagine if you you were doing your education system in the country, you know, your issue is in writing and reading. So I can imagine you're in the classroom with a child who does not have such a disability, and you're doing the same kind of paper, and you have a specific set time, you know. It's 2 hours for you to finish this exam. It's also 2 hours for you to finish that exam. So I believe that is really not fair. It's
not fair. Generally, we give 25% extra time for children who have dyslexia, but also if they struggle in writing, they might be given laptops to sit on their exams. They might be getting a subscriber, so someone, they will talk to that person, and then the exams will be written for them. So it's not that somebody's writing what they need to be saying, they have to say it, or you can use a recorder, so the exam will be recorded instead of writing. So all those other ways of adjusting the exam so that they are not disadvantaged. Yes.
Yeah, so that's a common challenge that is faced. So maybe what other common challenges are faced by, you know, people with such disabilities?
Anxiety, because you know that you struggle with reading and writing. Because of that, you will develop an anxiety where, you know, you worry about what the outcome would be. So those children need to be calmed prior to exams. They need to be told that, like, you have the knowledge, you have the skills, you need to engage in your long-term memory, and that you need to use visualization. So we use colors. So instead of doing black and white papers, they can use different colors to write their papers so that it jogs their memory of the knowledge that they have on their long-term memory.
All right. Thank you so much for joining us and for just shedding light and advocating for this particular disability that not many know about. As we call it, it's an invisible disability. Maybe if I allow you to give us your parting shot.
Thank you so much for KBC Channel 1 to give me the opportunity. Thank you, Vivian, for the interview. I just want to say to parents, teachers, and policymakers that everybody has an opportunity to thrive in education. We need to provide a conducive educational environment and learn about all our children's abilities so that we can support them in their time of difficulties in the education system.
All right, thank you so much, Suad, for joining us, and thank you for the work that you're doing in just ensuring inclusivity in the education system.
It's my pleasure. Thank you so much.
This is where we end Good Morning Kenya for today. Thank you so much to each and every one of you who has been with us from start to this point where we get to say goodbye. We wish you a lovely day. Do enjoy the rest of your viewing. Coming up next is the Senate proceedings. Goodbye.